Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie, Paul Gibson, and Josh Haynes. Everyone knows the trucking industry has issues, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Someone's got to do it.
With loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world, we deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Welcome to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. Josh isn't here, so I guess it's my job now to say, Charles, what are we talking about today?
Tariff talk, or not tariff talk. Yeah, we're going to dive into it. We're going to have fun. We got some great guests coming on.
Yep, tariffs. That's, yep. I mean, that's really like the news in the supply chain. I mean, I'm almost sick of talking about it, but it develops every week, and there's always something. And it's going to be nice to have Thomas and Grace Sharkey back to kind of talk about it when we talked about it before we knew whether or not it was even going to happen. But it's time to do all the stuff that we have to do every episode. You can check us out on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. So if you could like, subscribe, or rate wherever you consume those, pushes us out a little bit further, gives us some more momentum so we can do some cool stuff.
You can also go to centspermilepodcast.com where you can suggest to be a guest, a topic, or even to become a sponsor.
Sponsor? Who's our sponsor today, Charles?
We have TAFS, where they make factoring fun. You should definitely check our partners at TAFS out at tafs.com.
All right, and since our main topic is news, we don't really need to go to the news. Let's just cut real quick to Behind the Desk with Tenstreet.
Do you want to grow your fleet but get buried by paperwork, slow hiring processes, and outdated systems, all while struggling to comply with changing safety regulations? Enter Tenstreet, the all-in-one platform that simplifies driver lifecycle management by bringing marketing, recruiting, onboarding, safety, and retention together in one place. Tenstreet coordinates and streamlines all your operations. Post to dozens of job boards at once. Speed time to hire with pre-population and AI to get more full applications faster. And manage the entire post-hire process, from cutting costs with online onboarding, to integrating all safety data into one dashboard, to improving retention through thoughtful engagement. Whether you have one truck or 1,000, our expert team is here to help. Sleep soundly knowing you can pass an audit, attract needed drivers, and achieve your business goals. Join the thousands of carriers using Tenstreet. Sign up for a demo today.
At TAFS, we offer unparalleled trucking excellence and service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like fantastic tire discounts and 1-hour advances for quick cash. Recognized as the top factoring company in 2023, we're your partner for success. Access business loans, manage finances with ease through our client portal, F2 fuel card, and mobile app. Contact us now to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
So now it's time to make sense about all the crazy stuff we have happening. And there's no better people I can bring in than our good friends, Thomas Wasson and Grace Sharkey from Freightwaves. Welcome to Cents Per Mile, guys.
Yeah, excited to be back here.
It's early in the show. I tell everyone reserve the judgments until afterwards.
Right.
I'm ready. I'm like 1999 Spice Girls album Spice.
You can tell he's ready because he's all slumped back in his chair and he's got no posture. He's just
show my
Thomas is like, I got this. Hold my beer.
I'm here for it.
No, we're talking tariffs and the impact they've had thus far. I know, Grace, you love talking tariffs. Thomas, you are a man of many random facts on everything. So I'm super excited to see what you bring to this. I know you brought quite a few range of topics to my birthday party. So
I was testing them. It's like stand-up. I was testing them at your birthday party.
I love that.
You and Kevin were going back and forth.
Real quick for historical context, we've had both of you on the show to kind of talk about this topic in passing.
Yeah.
But at the time that we talked about it, it was still up in the air if the tariffs were going to happen or not. So we do have a decent amount of ground to cover.
And before we dive in too deep here, the most important question happening on Cents Per Mile: are the tariffs going to impact my coffee?
Yes.
I'll say
What about my steak?
Well,
I'd
Arguable.
say no.
yes.
Paul's tears.
Do you need electrolytes?
Paul seems like a guy who likes electronics, so maybe not so much Paul, but
Yeah. No, I buy things, so yeah, it sucks. I also have a 401k.
yeah, that too. Yeah,
That is a 301k as of late, sir.
Right. So yeah, I guess so.
No, seriously though, like there's a lot of questions and controversy circling this stuff. If you had to pick one of the tariff topics that are happening right now, I'll start with you, Grace. Where would you start as some of the things that people should be paying attention to?
well, I guess if you want to be like me, and I'm sure Thomas as well, and most of our staff here, you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. and see what happened in the wee hours of the night. I mean, that's what's interesting is just everyone is confused. You know, Thomas and I are both a part of wonderful meetings between Freightwaves and even Sonar, who get an even closer look at what shippers are asking about, and everyone just wants clarity, I think. And so for those out there, what's happening, I think, in particular, is the use of almost non-clarity in order to work this trade war, which, you know, we can go back and forth on the advantageousness of that. But I think what people should know is that the reason you don't know what's happening is purposeful. There's a reason that we're acting like this as a country. And so with that being said, companies, I think right now don't know what to do in regards to buying and inventory, because part of this big problem as well is that we also have the economic issues we're already dealing with. So, you know, if we were in a different situation where, and we likely wouldn't be in a trade war, but if there was a situation where people, I think, felt healthier about what's in their pockets, then behavior would be slightly different. But we're coming into a year with already high delays on mortgage payments, high credit card balances, of course, late payments on those as well. So we're talking about an economy where people were already planning on going into this year watching every dollar they spent. And now the uncertainty of what those goods will go up to is difficult for shippers to even figure out what to purchase, along with how much are they marking up individuals too. I mean, a perfect example of for those out there who are maybe a normie and aren't used to this industry is what's happened with the Nintendo Switch 2, right? Like it's on hold for a reason, because just people don't know how
outside of being Nintendo.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, exactly. Hey, listen, I got the Switch 1, but yeah,
I had a Game Boy back in the day.
Yeah, exactly, right?
If you don't have nostalgia for Nintendo, Charles, that must mean your childhood was terrible.
Yeah.
I was 40. A Sega kid, number one.
He's showing his age. Yeah.
I remember the first video game streaming platform, Sega Channel.
That's I see. Honestly, the Switch is the first actual system I've ever bought for myself. So I was like super proud and excited for that.
Yeah, we had the family systems where everyone would fight over time for them, just like when AOL Instant Messenger first came out. We had a sign-up sheet for it, and you used to get mad at how long the dial-up took. But for those people out there that don't know, Sega Channel was a cartridge you plugged into the Sega, and the cable cord plugged into the back of the cartridge, and it streamed games to your Sega system. It was pretty cool, and now I've shown that I'm 40.
I was just about to say, he just showed his generational difference between the rest of us.
Charles.
Talking about current economic issues. It's like things were great back in the day. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about the Nintendo Switch getting pushed back.
All right.
Well, so that's it. Basically, if you're uncertain, guess what? So are all of the brands that you like to buy and purchase. And so with that is, I mean, if I give an average consumer advice right now, it'd be get in your
money.
Yes, 100. Figure out
save your money.
Finances are before you're trying to figure out how the United States is running theirs.
All right, Thomas, for you, what's your thoughts around the Liberation Day tariffs? You know, the universal tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs.
There's always people who say things never happen. until they happen. And putting on my political science hat, there's nothing really in the textbook unless I pulled it up. What we're witnessing technically is unraveling of the very system that came in the post-Bretton Woods Agreement, when the United States, basically the currency, became the intermediary for transactions and commerce for the entire world. Got off the gold and silver standard. The dollar became the big thing. And so when we're trying to understand, I want to give two things. The first one is, when you're reading all these news, pay attention to who's complaining the most. That's the first tell I want to tell you, because they're probably shipping cheaply made Chinese things anyway, and they're part of the problem if the people
Temu.
Really love. Say what?
Temu.
The third. So we have a system where the United States is the hungriest of all the hippos. We are the largest market in the entire world. China, ever since coming in the WTO in the year like 2000 or so, they have become the largest exporter of things to the world. So we have this clash of titans, where we have one economy that is state subsidized and designed to ship tons of crap. And they're doing a really good job at it. They're the only economy that can actually build up factories and be able to do it. And then they go into countries like Vietnam and they have little satellites. The United States, on the other hand, we move towards that financialization. We've lost a lot of our manufacturing base, but we really have finances, services, money, and things that don't involve making things. But we have a lot of money, and we're very happy to spend it. And so this is kind of like a battle of like two drunken people playing chicken on the backwoods Tennessee road. And we just got to figure out, are they going to collide, or is one going to swerve? And I'm a betting man. I've got some folksy Southern wisdom. I think the country that buys things probably is going to be in a better position than the country whose sole job is to sell things. And what I'm saying that is, the second and third order of effect is, we're going to see the European Union and other countries levitate towards China, making trade deals without understanding that China will simply dump those extra goods, if we don't take them anymore, into their markets. I'll give you a great example. You love your electric vehicles? 80% of all the wafers are made in China. And so when we want to have this conversation, it's going to be really rough. If this thing goes all the way, and it does, which I'm going to bet it is. I think this is perfect.
Seems like it's going that way.
Yeah.
We're in for a few years of roughness. Now, we've had these changes happen since 2016 in the early stages of, supply chains have moved. But for folks who are listening to this, we are the canary in the coal mine. So if it suddenly goes and you see a bunch of carriers popping up like dead canaries in a Kentucky coal mine going to West Virginia, then it's probably not going to be good from a macro sense. Right now, the canary is asphyxiating, but we don't know if it's dead or if it will make it. And so, unfortunately, dear listener, I need about another 30 more days to see if this cave's going to run out of oxygen.
Is that Schrodinger's canary?
Now, I pulled some of the followers I had on various platforms, and I took different perspectives, and I kind of want to bounce them off you. So I'll start with you, Grace.
Yeah.
One of the critic comments about these tariffs are, economists warn that potential inflation, increased consumer costs, and the risk of a recession due to the disrupted supply chains are imminent. What's your thoughts on that?
I would agree at this point, the way that things are moving. Again, Thomas, the deadline, I think another one is in May, right? So that's like we're waiting about that 30 days. But I mean, at this point, I think there would have to be a big switch around on how things are being run, including with the feds as well, in order to avoid that in particular. So I would agree with that right now, 100%. Going back to my first comment of figure out your own finances and then worry about the United States from there.
Now, from the supportive side of the tariffs, Thomas, this one's for you. National security. Tariffs on critical sectors like technology and pharmaceuticals are presented as a measure to protect the national interest. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a lot of our missile components, our defense stuff is being farmed out to Chinese firms. And so if you want to make a Javelin missile or a Patriot side or even an airplane, unfortunately, China really provides it all. So, I mean, when we're looking at this, it is definitely the pharmaceuticals as well. Most of our pharmaceuticals are made in China. And so there is a national security component because we are very much exposed to a country that so far could be described as a free rider. China's taken advantage of not only its position as an upstart in our currently U.S.-led order, but now we're in a multipolar world. And so I think for a lot of Americans, we have to understand that there's a fundamental change. If we continue what we're doing, things are not going to work out in terms of debt. Now, is the answer cutting off your limb to save your body? I don't know, but it looks like we are not starting with a pinky and we're starting with a leg.
All right. So Grace, for you,
hopefully a bum leg, and not like the one that
we get the knee still for a brace, hopefully.
Grace, for you, one of the arguments that's been made in support of tariffs is trade fairness. This administration asserts that reciprocal tariffs are necessary to counteract unfair trade practices and level the playing field in favor of the U.S. What's your thoughts on this comment?
Kind of looking back, a lot of the pushback right on that original chart that came out was like the equation that went into even figuring out the percentage points of those tariffs. And I think the issue is it's not, and Thomas, I'm sure backed me up on this, it's not just about the amount of imports that we bring in from China needs to match the amount of imports they're taking in from the United States. I mean, a global economy just does not work like that. It was probably one of the biggest pushbacks for that one Penguin Island or whatever that everyone was freaking out about.
There were two islands of penguins. No people, just penguins.
Yeah, it's literally impossible for those economies to match the production that they are sending to us or that we're sending to them. And so, and in our conversation, I don't know if you'll put it on here, that we had before we started officially chatting, all of this is interconnected, right? Thomas brought up at one point the Vietnam aspect of all this too. I mean, you can cut off and punish some countries, but how does that work in regards to the different parts that are manufactured and then sent from in between those countries? It's much more interconnected, I think, than the average consumer truly understands. Or we were talking about before, you could say, well, we'll just, grow oranges, or we'll see oranges from the United States and nowhere else. Well, what about the tractor parts that those farmers use, or the fertilizer, right? There's different ingredients that go into, you would think a food or like a grape, let's say, just comes from a vine, so we're good to go if that's produced in the United States. There's much more that goes into producing that food type than just, of course, growing it from the ground. So I think just the economies that we've built over the last so many decades have become so interconnected that it's just not simple as the true fairness of it all. Or I think what we're almost looking for when we say fairness is an equal sense, and that's just not going to happen unless we, maybe I could see that maybe happening if we stuck to like North America, but even in that aspect, there's going to be a lot of jumping around, I think, into South America as well.
All right. And Thomas, one of the critic responses on this was the broad application of tariffs has strained the relationships with key trading partners and may lead to retaliatory measures, which we've already seen some of this. So do you think it's a dangerous game of chicken we're in right now? Or do you think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel? Or do you think, we're all going to hit a wall and have egg on our face?
Spicy take of the day. That's good. Let them. We're the largest consumer market. Who are you going to sell to? You going to tariff us? Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to buy your stuff. I'm going to go to a country that I can bully, and I'm going to get a deal. And at the end of the day, it's power politics. And I think that the reason our allies are really offended is because for decades, we've allowed them, our little semi-quasi-vassals, to take advantage of us and place tariffs on things that we want to sell to them. Look at Canada, our wonderfully unreliable neighbor to the north, having 100+% tariffs on certain U.S. goods. How nice it must be for you to protect your workers, but then when we try to do it on our end, reciprocate it, you are very offended. I wonder why. It goes back to my first point. Who's complaining the most? The people who complain the most are the ones who are taking advantage and abusing it the most. There is one iron law in this world, and it was written down by a guy named Hammurabi. It is the code of reciprocity. If you know one thing that people, countries, and nations do, is they like to reciprocate. And we've been a very fair and generous hegemon to these ungrateful countries, and now it's time that they appreciate our wonderfulness, or they lose access to security guarantees, and they can have China drive a One Belt Road initiative right up their crappy little industries, and they'll be flooded with enough Temu stuff to make the Eiffel Tower be filled in a box, which I'm sure a French author or an artist would love to do, and they can write about it as one of their great national things right behind their recent invention, which one was it? The Louvre.
Grace's face during that entire explanation was it might become the thumbnail of this episode.
I definitely, you're not wrong. It's just the metaphors this guy's able to just put together and like at the top of his head,
like this,
very impressive. Yes.
The Gandalf the Freight.
I mean, the thing is we're actually treating countries like China and others do. We are behaving, and it was really great for the longest. We were helpful in the free world, free trade. We had the WTO, we had all these transnational organizations. But at the end of the day, kind of like the Roman Empire and other places, if you hollow out your domestic thing at the expense of it, we have helped millions come out of poverty. Our ability to outsource our jobs from Detroit probably created 100 in some sub-Saharan third world country. We did a lot of good. But the problem is those folks in Detroit and other places that got hauled out, you got to give them a little bit too. And when other countries are not respecting us in terms of this trade flow, I'm just kind of sitting here with popcorn, because if you notice that it went down to 10% and it was postponed on everyone but China, the real goal is going to be China. This is basically... the other fine thing is, you ever want to find out who's spending on your credit card, just cut it off. So a lot of people look through the lens of these tariff moves as, why would you raise it so much? Oh my gosh, that's too much. And it's like, turn off the internet and see what kid in your room starts screaming they're watching something. That's the only way to find things out. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist or an economist to know that if you leverage them all up to 35%, you're going to find out who's really your friend really quick and who maybe is kind of a butthole, because we saw that with reciprocity. And so it's fascinating because in the terms of U.S. policy, this is definitely outside of what we've ever really done before, other than like before World War II. We were kind of a butthole as well. We were the China, by the way, in the early, during the Gilded Age, the late 1800s to the Great Depression. Till we
I was about to say, what happened after we did that?
We had
almost
an entire
immediately
depression that got longer, but were we the world's largest economy?
Sure. So that's like what you said,
Thomas. You fell for the trap.
Yeah. Last.
I've honestly been waiting for Paul.
Did we have a very complicated global supply chain? You can use that argument as a one for one. It doesn't stand the sniff test, because that's the equivalent of saying, well, like, the ancient Egyptians and the Babylonians both grew wheat, and then their beer is different. But if you cut the wheat off, then they see it's kind of like a lot of folks will use that argument because the precursors are fundamentally different. Right now, it's even more entertaining because we have this complicated black box. So we may have a depression, we may not have a depression, or it may get better, and we don't know the answer. With the Great Depression, there was a lot of tariffs, but a different trade regime. This post-Bretton Woods agreement that we're blowing up, we actually don't know the answer. So it's more entertaining than your argument saying that, like, we're going to screw it up, because it's kind of like spin the bottle. We don't know if we're going to be screwed or not. We just kind of got to wait and see.
Hey,
I would agree with that. But
one thing to being screwed. He said just maybe.
Right. So my question is, because you mentioned the Roman Empire, then we got into the Depression, and this could go a lot of different ways. How long do you think, though, before that power move works versus things falling apart internally with the supply chain and the people that actually work in it?
Ooh, put me in, coach.
No.
The supply chain's already falling apart. It's been falling apart. There's other factors at play that contribute to that. I'm
talking about falling apart.
So will our supply chain go faster before China's youth unemployment rises up and Tiananmen squares them?
Yes.
That's the $1 trillion question.
Yeah.
I think our supply chain will last longer because our carriers have already suffered enough. And it's actually, if enough of them leave, it'll become a net positive for truckload capacity. So it's like, ours is like that hungry Hunger Games, like slightly demented person. Our supply chain is like Mad Max. But the Chinese supply chain, very fragile. Don't look at their GDP numbers. They have a huge, 30 million people are tied into making crap for us and other countries. If we wait them out long enough, that's the theory right now that we don't know the answer to, because will they blink first or will we? And their numbers are fudgy anyway. So yeah, I wish I had an answer, but
if you did, you'd be the $1 billion man.
It's interesting, though, that you do bring up that point, Thomas, because something that we covered on the Stock Out this week was a little bit of the fun TikTok drama, I think, that everyone saw from the Chinese manufacturers over the weekend. And to Thomas's point, what was their goal in those? It was to kind of expose a little bit, but their hope is that as a U.S. consumer, you say, okay, I'm going to just skip over buying this bag from Hermes, and I'm going to go directly to the manufacturer and get it without basically the label that's added when it goes to Italy or whatever.
Yeah, but is that really what happens when you depict a bunch of Americans as fat slobs in a video and then you put it out there? I mean,
Well,
if anything, that's a turnoff.
I will say, some of us are fat slobs, but for me though, I think the point is that they're banking still on you buying something they made, right? Yeah. They're just trying to make you bypass. So to Thomas's point, that being that was a big action, that he's correct in saying that they all understand that their economy is centered around people buying things from them. Yeah. And if they lose that, then and down to a lot of these manufacturers have schools right next to the manufacturer where they teach them how to make just that item, which kind of, for all the Americans, clearly we don't have.
Instead of shop class.
We're like, no, you're
build-up skills.
Yeah, congrats. Your high school is learning how to make purses and working with leather, But and the fact
Coach
that
looks alike.
Yeah, the fact that their economy and their education, that's the order of things is set up like that, there is leverage in that for sure, Thomas.
Yeah. So I think what I'm gathering from all of this is time will tell. We're in an unprecedented time where there's nothing historical to really look back and base a guess off, because so many things have changed.
If I was going to make a definitive statement, I would say I think the U.S. consumers should be prepared to be hurt and or tight in the upcoming year or so. I think that's one thing, regardless of how this plays out, everyone should be prepared for, and then take that conversation and add it to the domestic supply chain. That means less stuff moving. Truckers, you run with that how you want to run with that, but that's not good news usually for you.
And Thomas, if you had to encapsulate all of that into your forecast?
We're in for pain ahead. But on the bright side, don't look at your 401k and you're going to be entertained. So welcome to the show.
Unless you want to retire this year, just tell your boss, I'm still here, bud.
Time to work in one of those factories we're about to build.
Yeah.
Strap in.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys diving into this with us. It's always good talk when we bring Grace and Thomas on the show. They're just wealths of knowledge, and it's always nice to kind of open the door and just see what happens.
For sure. Love you guys.
Turns out no news actually sometimes can be bad news or just really unsettling.
Wow, that was a lot that we were diving in and talking about. Always great to have our freight friends Grace and Thomas on with us to help us break it down. But Paul, I think it's time to go. So
yep, it's always great to have them on, just to kind of not confirm, but definitely know that the fears could be real. They also could be fake. And that we just live in a time of complete uncertainty, and might as well have a good time because we don't know where we're going.
Hopefully you had a good time on the show today, but like all good things, this has to come to an end. So thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. See you next time.